Most people thought India Royale and Lil Durk were relationship goals. But what if that whole fairy tale was hiding something darker? She didn't just walk away from love, she ran from it. And now, for the first time, we're seeing the real reason why. Forget what you thought you knew, because what India recently revealed flips the entire story on its head. And it's not the picture-perfect breakup fans assumed. This isn't about clout, it's about survival. And the truth? It's way more disturbing than anyone expected. To the outside world, India Royale and Lil Durk looked like the modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. Every post, every comment, every paparazzi shot painted a picture of what millions of fans believed to be true love in its rawest, most authentic form. Instagram feeds were littered with luxury vacations, birthday gifts wrapped in G-Wagons and Richard Mille watches, and long, heartfelt captions about loyalty, growth, and the kind of bond that supposedly couldn't be broken by fame, money, or outside voices. Durk would post photos of India with captions like, "My Queen," while India often shared filtered images of the two of them cuddled up, glowing with that golden hour lighting. Smiles wide, body language locked in harmony. They weren't just dating. They were marketed as the blueprint for love in the hip-hop world. People looked up to them. Young fans posted TikToks about wanting a Durk and India type of relationship. Even other celebrities reposted their sweet moments. Then came the public engagement, the moment that solidified the fantasy. During a live concert, in front of thousands, Lil Durk got down on one knee and proposed. The crowd erupted, cameras flashed. India smiled, surprised and glowing. That video went viral instantly, racking up millions of views across every major platform. Headlines read, "Durk finally puts a ring on India. Fans celebrate black love." It seemed like a happily ever after unfolding in real time. But in retrospect, that moment was one of the last high points before everything began to unravel. Behind the cameras, things weren't so glossy. Close followers of their journey began to notice subtle shifts. Cryptic tweets, unfollowing each other on social media, vanishing photos that once stood as monuments of their connection. The once predictable rhythm of affection and public display began to falter. There were no more birthday tributes, no more heart emojis and comments. Instead, silence. And silence, especially in the digital age, speaks volumes. What fans didn't see were the arguments behind closed doors, the growing tension that no caption could cover up, the emotional toll of being tethered to someone whose public image was rising, but whose personal habits may have stayed rooted in a darker place. Rumors began to swirl. Cheating, secrets, disrespect. But India stayed silent, at least at first. People assumed they were just going through a rough patch. After all, that's what every couple goes through, right? But this wasn't just a rough patch. It was the slow death of a relationship built on projection. An empire of curated posts, influencer aesthetics, and rap royalty branding, all quietly cracking from the inside out. And when the truth began slipping through those cracks, it became clear. This was never a fairy tale. But behind all the diamonds and captions, something was rotting. In the age of social media, silence isn't quiet, it's deafening, especially when the people involved are used to living online. When India Royale unfollowed Lil Durk on Instagram, it was more than just a button tap. It was a digital detonation. Her decision echoed louder than any breakup announcement could. For a woman who had built an entire lifestyle, brand around love, luxury, and loyalty, particularly loyalty to him, the act of removing Durk from her digital circle was a clear and calculated move. And she didn't stop there. One by one, photos disappeared from her feed. The matching outfits, the vacation selfies, the backstage moments, the diamond ring close-ups, deleted, archived, gone. All that remained was one image, a single photo of their daughter, Willow, with Durk by her side. A subtle, almost silent message: "I'm done with the man, but I'll never erase the father." To the casual observer, it might have looked like a random purge, but India's core followers knew better. They've been here before, decoding every lyric, every retweet, every pixel of a disappearing picture. So when she followed up her social media cleanse with a tweet that simply read, "I'm single, I'm a free agent," it didn't just stir the pot, it flipped the whole kitchen. Fans immediately went into investigative mode. Twitter threads popped up within hours. Screenshots were being compared. Old interviews were reanalyzed. Fans went full FBI, combing through Durk's recent activity, trying to figure out what he did. Some pointed to a string of suspicious likes on Instagram, bikini pictures of random influencers. Others noticed Durk had posted a cryptic story the same day saying, "Real ones don't run when it get tough." Was that shade? A confession? A cover-up? India didn't clarify. She didn't have to. Her moves were surgical, intentional. She let the silence speak for her. And the internet? It did what the internet always does, filled in the blanks. But this wasn't just a celebrity couple having a spat. Something was different this time. The energy shifted. And if you looked closely, India was moving like a woman who wasn't just heartbroken. She was done. No drama, no interviews, no diss posts, just the full dismantling of a public relationship, like a queen stripping a castle bare before walking away. And while fans were still hoping this was just another fight, another cycle in their famously rocky love story, India wasn't being vague. She was drawing a line. But India wasn't dropping hints for fun. She was sending a warning. Most people, after a breakup, especially one playing out under the full glare of the internet, try to keep things classy, or at least quiet, but not Durk. Instead of issuing a statement or staying silent, Lil Durk did what Lil Durk does. He posted. It started with a caption, bold, possessive, and according to many, flat-out disturbing. Over a throwback photo of him in India, he wrote, "That kitty mine forever, welcome to death row." At first glance, some fans took it as a joke, an unbothered flex from a man trying to reclaim his woman publicly. But others immediately clocked the red flags. It didn't read like a love note. It read like a warning, a claim, a threat dressed up in emoji. The reference to death row wasn't just hip-hop nostalgia. For those paying attention, it came off as menacing. Like Durk was telling the world, if I can't have her, no one will. It was dark, possessive, controlling. And India? She wasn't amused. She didn't write a long thread. She didn't hop on Instagram Live to explain herself. She let one emoji do the work. A blue hat. That's it. A single cap emoji. Modern slang for that's a lie. And just like that, she flicked the script. No matter what story Durk was trying to spin, the idea that they were still connected, still on some ride or die timeline, she shut it down. Immediately, Twitter exploded. Blogs jumped in. Screenshots spread like wildfire. Welcome to Death Row trended for all the wrong reasons. Fans weren't laughing. They were disturbed. The conversation shifted from breakup rumors to toxic behavior. Suddenly, people weren't just asking what happened. They were asking how long has this been going on? Some fans defended Durk, brushing it off as a poor attempt at humor. But more and more people saw something else. A man who was trying to control the narrative, and the woman who had clearly walked away. And what made it worse? He kept going. While India remained poised and distant, Durk flooded his page with posts, old photos, throwbacks, lyrics hinting at betrayal, loyalty, regret. It was like watching someone unravel in real time, one post at a time. But the more he tried to make it seem like he still had a hold on her, the clearer it became he didn't. And that wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. Because when a man like Durk, powerful, famous, used to being in control, starts losing grip, that's when things get scary. And that's when things started to unravel fast. By the time India unfollowed Durk and posted that subtle but undeniable cap reply, the internet had already been whispering for months. But now, the whispers turned to a roar. The breakup didn't come out of nowhere, not to those who had been paying attention. This was just the final act in a long, messy play. For years, Durk had cultivated the image of a devoted partner, a street king with a soft spot for his queen. But off-screen, there were cracks in the glass. Cheating rumors had followed him like shadows. Random women posting cryptic messages, leaked DMs, entire gossip threads dedicated to alleged side chicks. Some fans dismissed it all as fame's collateral damage, par for the course in the rap world. But others saw the pattern: denial, distraction, and silence from India. Then came the interview, the one that left even loyal fans shook. Durk was asked what made him fall for India, what made her the one. And instead of highlighting her loyalty, intelligence, or the way she helped raise their family, his answer was this: she had a low body count. That's what made her stand out. That was it. That was his definition of value. Not who she was, but how few people she had been with before him. Not her mind, not her presence, not the years they had built together. Just a number. A number he decided made her worth claiming. It wasn't just tone deaf. It was revealing. It showed the way he saw her, not as a partner, but as a prize. Someone to be displayed, protected, and ultimately controlled. And through all of this, India said nothing. No tweets, no podcast appearances, no sub-posts, just silence. At first, some mistook it for passivity, as if she was just letting it slide. But over time, it became clear that her silence wasn't weakness. It was power. It was strategy. Because in a world that constantly tries to spin the narrative for women, sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is refuse to play the game. She let Durk speak. She let the world listen. And without saying a single word, she exposed it all. But her silence wasn't just about grace. It was about survival. From the outside, Lil Durk and India Royale looked like they were living the dream. Lavish vacations, designer outfits, birthday surprises that went viral. A family that seemed tight-knit, but beneath the surface, beneath the Instagram filters and red carpet appearances, was a world that didn't just pose emotional threats. It brought physical ones. Durk wasn't just a rapper. He was a symbol, a figure deeply embedded in a lifestyle that doesn't come without consequences. And that lifestyle, it bled into everything. The music, the headlines, and most chillingly, the home they shared. Durk's ties to the streets were never a secret, from the beginning of his career. He rapped openly about his affiliation with Chicago's OTF, Only the Family, and the wider Black Disciples Network, groups that have long histories, rivalries, and dangerous reputations. For many, it was just lyrics. For Durk, it was real life. And when real life and music collide, it doesn't stay in the studio. It spills into homes, headlines, and courtrooms. The death of King Von, one of Durk's closest friends and label mates, was a wake-up call to anyone paying attention. Von wasn't just another rapper. He was family to Durk. And his murder in November 2020 outside an Atlanta hookah lounge sent shockwaves through the industry. What followed was the expected cycle. Retaliation rumors, police surveillance, and a fresh wave of court cases tied to Chicago's deadly rap politics. But even with all that circling him, Durk kept pushing forward publicly. He dropped albums, he made money, he posted India and their family, trying to give the impression that while the streets were dangerous, home was safe, until it wasn't. July 2021, Atlanta, Georgia. Durk and India were asleep in their home, a supposed sanctuary, protected behind security systems and gates. In the middle of the night, intruders broke in, armed, ready. This wasn't just a burglary. This was something deeper, something targeted. Durk and India didn't freeze. They didn't call for help and wait. They pulled out their own firearms and exchanged gunfire with the intruders. A full-blown shootout in the place their daughter slept. This wasn't music. This wasn't gossip. This was war. And they were on the front lines. No arrests were made. No suspects were publicly named. But people talked. The whispers were that this wasn't random, that Durk's affiliations had finally followed him all the way home. And through all of it, India stayed quiet. She didn't do interviews. She didn't post cryptic tweets. She stayed by his side, publicly at least, until one day, she wasn't. Because at a certain point, it became clear, this wasn't just a relationship. It was a battlefield. A life with Durk meant more than late-night studio sessions and red carpets. It meant constant danger, constant tension, and a shadow of violence that never quite left. Leaving a man like Durk wasn't just about breaking a heart. It was about breaking free from a life that could have cost her more than peace. It could have cost her life. India didn't just leave a relationship. She walked away from a battlefield. From the outside, India Royale's silence looked like heartbreak, like she was licking wounds, healing in private after another celebrity love story fell apart. But for those paying attention, really paying attention, her every move began to look less like reaction and more like strategy. This wasn't a messy exit. It was a methodical retreat. When India unfollowed Durk, scrubbed her Instagram, and dropped that cryptic tweet about being a free agent, fans were quick to label it a breakup. Another girl hurt, another rapper exposed, another love story collapsed under the weight of fame and infidelity. But the deeper you looked, the more it became clear. India wasn't reacting emotionally. She was moving carefully, strategically, like someone who understood exactly what she was walking away from. Because while the headlines obsessed over drama, betrayal, and Durk's next move, India went quiet. And that silence, it was powerful. She didn't run to YouTube with a tell-all. She didn't expose screenshots or go live in tears. She stayed low, which ironically made her louder than ever. Every move she made was amplified because she wasn't making many at all. Insiders, people close to both camps, began whispering the same thing. India wasn't done with Durk. Not emotionally, not entirely, but she was stepping back for protection. Physical, emotional, and professional. And not just protection of self, but of her child, her image, her brand. The truth was, being Lil Durk's partner had once elevated her. It brought followers, visibility, a luxury lifestyle. But at some point, the risk started to outweigh the reward. Being attached to a man with alleged ties to gang activity, constant legal drama, and growing public backlash wasn't just stressful, it was dangerous. Especially for a woman building her own platform, her own beauty line, and a name that was slowly starting to stand on its own. India understood the optics. She understood the stakes. She didn't want to be the girl clinging to a man who publicly embarrassed her. She didn't want to be the ride or die who got buried in the process. And she definitely didn't want her daughter growing up in chaos masked as luxury. So she backed away, not with flames, but with precision. She didn't slam the door shut. She left it cracked just enough to control the narrative, to observe, to let Durk unravel himself while she stood on the outside, untouched by the fallout. It was the type of PR-savvy decision you'd expect from a major label executive, not a 20-something influencer. And that's what made it so impressive. Because while fans were arguing in comment sections and Durk was posting sad captions and late-night apologies, India kept playing chess. Quiet moves, strategic distance, public control. She wasn't trying to destroy Durk. She was trying to survive him, protecting her future without adding gasoline to the fire, preserving her dignity while the internet begged her to spill the tea. And through it all, she didn't lose cool points. She gained power. People didn't pity her. They respected her. She was no longer just a rapper's girlfriend. She was a woman who knew her value and refused to be dragged through the mud just to prove a point. But even strategy has its cost. Even silence comes with sacrifice. Because walking away, especially from someone you built a life with, isn't just about escaping danger. It's about grieving dreams, letting go of a fantasy you once believed in, accepting that love, no matter how public or passionate, can become poison if you're not careful. But even if it was strategy, it still came at a cost. For months, India Royale said almost nothing. No interviews, no direct statements, no tell-all posts about what really happened between her and Lil Durk. But when she did start to speak, slowly, carefully, and always with intention, what she revealed wasn't gossip. It was a transformation. Gone was the soft-spoken partner living in the shadow of a superstar. In her place stood a woman who had survived something we didn't fully understand and wasn't trying to relive it for clout. What India shared in bits and pieces was never messy, never vengeful. But if you read between the lines, it was crystal clear. She hadn't just left Durk, she'd saved herself. In a rare moment of vulnerability, India shared that she had been prioritizing peace, something she hadn't always known how to do. She spoke about boundaries, about protecting her energy, about how silence wasn't weakness, it was survival and healing. Her posts didn't drag Durk. They didn't name names or spill details. But the tone, it said everything. She talked about feeling drained, about needing to get back to herself. She emphasized protecting her daughter's environment. And she made it known without fanfare that she had outgrown chaos disguised as love. That kind of message didn't need specifics. It hit regardless. Fans who were once begging for drama began realizing this wasn't a petty breakup. It wasn't even a scandal. It was something darker, more complex. India's carefully chosen words started to hint at deeper scars, ones emotional, maybe even psychological. She never called Durk abusive. But when she spoke about protecting her peace, avoiding manipulative situations, and removing herself from environments where she wasn't heard, the implications weren't hard to decode. What stood out most was her refusal to make herself small anymore. For years, she was the woman beside Durk, always loyal, always graceful, even when he wasn't. But now, she was more than that. She was a mother, a businesswoman, a survivor, and perhaps most importantly, her own person. She wasn't trying to prove Durk wrong or get revenge. She was simply reclaiming herself. And that's where the real power lies. Because while social media fixated on whether they'd get back together, India was doing something much harder, choosing herself in public. Walking away from a $1 million relationship that came with status, gifts, and clout, all because she finally realized none of that meant peace. None of it was worth her voice, or her safety, or her future. She wasn't just reclaiming her time, she was reclaiming her identity. And when she started showing up alone, glowing, healthy, unbothered, The message was louder than any post Durk could have written. She wasn't looking back. She wasn't broken. She was free. And that freedom, that's what made people stop talking about Durk and start respecting India. And with that clarity, India rewrote her narrative. When India Royale finally walked away, it wasn't loud. There was no viral thread, no public breakdown, no messy back and forth for attention. She didn't sell her story or sit down for a tell-all interview. She didn't post screenshots. She didn't air out receipts. In a world obsessed with spectacle, she chose silence. And that silence, in the middle of chaos, pressure, and constant noise, spoke louder than anything she could have said. Because while the internet watched a breakup, she survived a breakdown. And not just a romantic one. This wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the unraveling of an identity that had for years been tied to someone else. It was the quiet collapse of a life that may have looked perfect on Instagram but was cracked beneath the surface. It was late nights, quiet battles, and decisions that most people would never understand because they were never in the room when things turned. Fans saw the diamonds, the proposals, the public displays of affection, but they didn't see the compromises, the hurt, the fear. The moment she realized that being loved loudly wasn't the same as being loved safely. And that's the truth that most people miss. India didn't leave for attention. She left because staying meant shrinking. Because no amount of love should come at the cost of your peace, your voice, or your safety. She left quietly because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's walking away with your dignity instead of your side of the story. And that's what made her so powerful. In a culture where women are expected to suffer in silence or explode for entertainment, India chose neither. She chose peace. She chose her daughter. She chose herself. And in doing so, she taught an entire generation something we don't talk about enough. Love without safety isn't love at all. It's control, it's chaos, it's illusion. India didn't burn bridges or chase revenge. She simply outgrew the fire and walked away before it consumed her completely. And in the end, that's not weakness. That's survival. That's strength. That's what healing looks like.